Hello readers, it's Mrs. Saul. I'm here to share a book with you today. And the story I'm going to read today is called The Relatives Came. Now, before I start, I wanted to take a second to talk about this word relatives and what that means. Relatives are people that you are related to. They are people in your family. So the relatives that you live with might be your mom or dad, your brothers and sisters. And then we have other relatives that maybe we don't live with, like our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, our cousins. Those are relatives. So relatives is really just another word for family. So when we read this title, The Relatives Came, we know that means it's the time that the family came. This story was written by Cynthia Rylant and illustrated by Stephen Gamel, or Gamel. I'm not sure how to say that. I did my best. I wanted to just say that as I'm reading today, I'm going to give a little shout out during my reading, and I hope that you're listening. And if you hear me say your name, if any of you have heard me say your name in a video, I want you to send me a little note in Class Dojo. You can have mom help you or dad. Send me a note and tell me that you heard me say your name. Then I know you're listening to our videos. So I'm going to give a shout out at some point in our book. It might be in the beginning or the middle or near the end. You've got to watch the whole video. I don't think you're going to want to miss any part of the video anyway, because this is a great book we're about to read. So let's get started. Now, as I'm reading today, I want you to notice that I am going to be making some connections in this book. Friends, good readers make connections when they read. That means that they think about their reading and they think about how the book, whatever book it is, reminds them of something. So I want you to pay attention as I read to how I make connections with the book we're reading today, with the story, okay? So here we go. The Relatives Came. The Relatives Came by Cynthia Rylant, illustrated by Stephen Gamel. I notice already there's a whole bunch of suitcases and luggage and bags. That makes me think that the relatives are coming to visit. I also noticed on the cover there were people driving in a car with lots of luggage up on top. Looks like they have a luggage rack. I think that the family is coming to visit. That's why it's called The Relatives Came. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. So Cynthia Rylant so far has told us the setting and when this story is happening. So we know it was in the summer because it says in the summer. And she's also told us that it was a time in the summer when the grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. That means that these relatives must live on some sort of farm or in a place where they have room to grow grapes. And I think they're gonna pick those grapes, but the grapes are not ready to be picked. I guess it's a good time to go on a little vacation. So I just have to say here on this part, this is already making me think about family, my family who live far away. That is a connection I'm having with this story because it's making me think of visiting relatives, going to visit relatives, and relatives coming to visit me. I have some family who lives far away in Colorado, and I have gone to visit them a few times. I also have family who live in Minnesota, and they have come to visit here. And they have 4 daughters, and when they come, they have to bring a lot of stuff because there's 6 people, mom, dad, and 4 daughters. So they have to travel with a lot of bags, kind of like these people here. There looks like they're loading up all their bags in the car to get ready to go visit. They had an old station wagon, like a real car. And in it, they put an ice chest full of soda pop. Where we live in New Jersey, we don't usually call soda pop, but in some parts of our country, that's what they call it. They call it pop or soda pop. It's just a name for soda. And an ice chest is like what we might call a cooler, something that keeps things cold. And they also packed some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches. And they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. Wow, they left really early in the morning to come visit from Virginia. Now, I'm gonna guess right here that these relatives do live far away. They're traveling somewhere far, and I think this because it says that they packed drinks and sandwiches, okay? And crackers, almost forgot the crackers. That tells me that you're probably driving a far distance, because if I was just driving to work, I don't need to pack myself things to drink and snacks because it's a very short drive for me. But when you're traveling far, going on a road trip, many times we pack food and snacks and drinks so that if we get hungry along the way, we don't have to stop. We can just have a snack in the car. So that's a clue that the author gave me that tells me that I think that they're traveling far to go visit. They drove all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. So this page is talking about how the family is driving, and they're on their trip to go visit, and while they're driving along, they're thinking about their grapes, they're thinking about the state of Virginia where they live, but they're also thinking about the family they're going to visit. That makes me think about when I go visit people. I think about so many things, and especially about getting to see everyone and what we're gonna do together. It's kind of another connection I'm having with the book. So they drank up all their pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. So I think we were right that this was a far trip, because they drank all their soda and they ate all their crackers and they traveled all those miles, okay? Lots of miles tells me it's far. And then they pulled into the yard. Uh-oh. I think either someone's a tired driver or they're very excited and not paying attention, because look, they just crashed into the fence at their house. But they don't look too upset. These kids look super excited for their family to have arrived. Friends, this page here, these characters on this page remind me, especially this little girl, because I kind of looked like her when I was little. I had brown hair like that. I still do. And it was usually a little stringy like spaghetti. And when my family would come visit, I was so excited. So I'm having a connection with the character here. She reminds me of me. And I don't know if you know this, but, well, I don't think you do, but my mom is one of 10 children. And you know what? She was the only daughter. She had 9 brothers. Can you imagine? 9 brothers. She was the only girl. So I had so many aunts and uncles and cousins because my mom had so many brothers. So I felt just like this, and I was so excited when my family came to visit. So I'm having a little connection with this picture here and this character and how she looks like she's jumping off the swing and she's running to see her family. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. So this is showing us how excited the family is. Look at everyone hugging here. Look at that. Wow. That's showing me how much love they have for each other, how fond they are of each other. They really like each other. And it said people were crying too. I don't think they were crying sad tears. I think they were crying happy tears because they're so happy to see each other. And maybe it's been a long time. You know, I know, like I said before, this is making me think of a time, the lights went out, of a time when I had my cousins visiting. But can you tell me, I want you to think at home, think about a time maybe when you got to see some family who you haven't seen in a while. How did that make you feel? Think about that for a second. I'm going to give you a minute to think. If somebody's next to you, why don't you tell them what you're thinking? Okay. So, I hope that you were thinking about this and how maybe you're having a connection to this story. And you talked about how maybe you felt just like them. You were so excited to see your family when they arrived. Now, give me 1 minute because I need to go turn the lights back on. Hold, please. Be right back. Isn't that so silly that the lights go off? I was sitting too still, so they thought, no one's in the room, the lights have to go off. They're automatic lights, which is good, it saves energy. Oh, by the way, I want to give a little shout out right now to Ronald. Hi, Ronald. I hope you're enjoying our story. Okay, let's keep reading. Then it was into the house and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorway. More hugging. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And I'm going to show you closely. Again, look at how happy they are to see each other. Hugging and the big, big smiles and laughing that's going on there. Yeah, this family really, really enjoys being together. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in 2s and 3s through the house. So it seems like things have calmed down a little bit. The family now had dinner or supper together. And when I look at these pages here, I can tell again that everyone seems to be enjoying dinner together. They're eating. Look at this guy. He's got a lot of food on his plate. He must be really hungry. But they're eating and still smiling and laughing. They're really enjoying each other's company. And friends, this part so much reminds me of when I used to go to my grandmother's and grandfather's house for Sunday dinner. Every Sunday we would go around 1 o'clock and have dinner with my grandparents and many of my aunts and uncles and cousins. And this is how it looked. There were so many people that we couldn't even fit at one table. We had to spread out, and the kids sat at one table. Some people sat in the kitchen. Some people sat in the dining room. Some people sat in the living room. There were so many people all around. And after we finished eating, we would all start kind of doing the same like them, like kind of breaking off and going and sitting. Like I would go with my cousins and sit with them and talk to them, or we'd play. This part is really, I'm really having a connection with this part of the story. This reminds me, this part, this event reminds me of my life growing up. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. I know what she means. So look at these people. There's 4 of them squished in this bed. It's probably like a mom. Oh, it looks like grandma and grandpa. And there maybe 2 of their grandchildren. There's people on the floor. Look at the dog. Oh my goodness. I like this guy right here. He looks like he's snoring. and look, this is the little girl that looks like me. And when she said that it was different going to sleep with all the new breathing in the house, well, I would imagine, especially with this guy snoring, breathing over here. When you have a lot of people in the same room, all sleeping, you hear a lot of strange noises. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. Well, that was very nice. So this isn't just a short vacation or a short trip to visit family. They stayed for weeks and weeks. That tells me it had to be at least 2 weeks, but it might have been 3 or 4. They stayed for a long time. And look, they're helping. That's really nice. They're doing lots of things to help. So this guy is giving him a haircut, and oh, they're working in the garden over here. Oh, it looks like she is helping to fix this boy's broken truck. That's very nice. You know, when I stayed with my family in Colorado, I remember that my uncle had a little bit of a flood in the basement. His bathroom sink overflowed. Somebody left the faucet on. And I helped, when I was there, clean up that mess. So this is another part of the story where the events in the story and what the characters are doing reminds me of something that I did. They ate up all our strawberries and melons, then promised we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. Oh, so it looks like the family that came from Virginia that grows grapes came to visit other family. We don't know where they live. They didn't tell us that. We just know it was far. But it says they ate up all their strawberries and melons. So maybe this family they came to visit grows strawberries and melons in their garden. Oh, well, thank goodness, looky here. It looks like they're fixing the fence that they crashed into. I was wondering if they were gonna do that. And look, they're singing and playing music together. Lots of watermelon. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Friends, I really like this page because it said that they were so busy. They weren't thinking about going back home. They weren't thinking about their grapes. They weren't thinking about all the things they have to do when they get back home. They were just too busy enjoying each other. I love that page. And I think Cynthia Rylant wrote this page because she wanted us to really understand how much this family enjoyed being together, how much they enjoyed spending time together. It looks like here they're trying to get ready to pose to take a family photograph because this guy here is holding a camera and it looks like they're all kind of lining up. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet. We fell asleep. So wow, let's look at their faces here. Look at them. I think they look a little bit sad, especially her. She looks quite sad that everyone has left and gone home. I know that I feel like that. When my cousins, who I'm very, very close with, who live in Colorado, when they have to leave to go home, sometimes I cry. I take them to the airport and I have tears in my eyes because I'm so sad. I don't want them to leave. They live so far away and I know it's gonna be a long time before I see them again. So I really am having another connection with this story here. It makes me think about my life and how I feel when my cousins leave, and I feel so sad. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. So now the family is driving back home to Virginia, and now they're thinking about Virginia, but they're also thinking about the family that they just left, and they're missing them. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. That part tells me that this family in Virginia probably goes and travels to visit that other family every summer, because now they're dreaming about next summer when they get to go do that again. And that was the end. Some grapes. I hope you really enjoyed this story. Now, I hope that you noticed that I had a lot of connections with this book. So many parts reminded of me of myself. It reminded me of my family. I had a connection with the way some of the characters felt, because I have felt like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about those connections. So I'm going to turn my camera, and I want you to take a look at my chart here. So I want to talk to you about making text connections. Now, good readers make connections to help them better understand the text. Text is just another word for book. Any book that you're reading is called text, okay? Even if you're reading a text on somebody's phone, you're texting someone. I know that's what many of us think of now when we hear the word text. Text is just another word for words. Text is words. So anywhere you read words, anywhere, on a sign, in a book, on a cereal box, on a shampoo bottle, in a newspaper, any place that you read words, in an email, on your phone, that is text. And you can have a connection with any text that you read, okay? So good readers make connections to help them better understand what they're reading. So I wanted to talk about the first type of text connection that readers make, and you just saw me making a lot of them. That is text to self connections. That is when you are having a connection between a text, a book in this case, this book that we read, and your own life. Okay, so when you read a book and it reminds you of something that happened to you, or something that you did, or a way that you felt, or a place that you visited, then you're having a text to self connection. Now, it's so important when we have these connections as readers that we share them. So if you were in school, you will be sharing, or you would be sharing your connections with me. You might share them with a buddy. We have reading buddies in our class. We have partners in our class who right now are sitting far apart, but they're still our partners. And if you're home, you could share with a mom or dad or a brother or a sister. And I wanted to show you some ways that you can start your connections, how you can share what you're thinking. So here is one sentence that you can use. If you are reading and you're feeling like this is reminding you of something, this book or this part, you can say, "This reminds me of a time," and then finish the sentence with your connection. So I'm going to put this up here by text to self. This reminds me of a time. Here's another one that you maybe could use. This part made me think of. Okay, so maybe there's just a part of the book that's making you think of something. So that's another kind of sentence you can share with somebody you're reading with or next to. And sometimes we have connections with characters. So I have one that said, "I felt like the character when," just like I had said, I felt like the characters in the book when they were sad when their relatives were leaving, right? So that's another kind of sentence starter you can use when you are making text to self connections, okay? These are just ideas. There's so many things you could say to share a text to self connection, but I wanted to just give you a few ideas. So I hope you enjoyed our story today, and I can't wait to catch up with you again tomorrow when we're going to talk about another type of text connection. So until then, happy reading, friends. Bye.